right, we're back.
Take two.
With our series on being an elder. We've talked, Hans, in the past week and a half or so about some reasons to embark on this journey of being an elder, which is very different than just being an older. An elder is a level of far greater responsibility. It can benefit your family. It can benefit your leadership. One of the things that we haven't talked about, one of the benefits of taking on being an elder, is I see quite a number of men today who don't feel, let's say, worthy or confident as a man, as a leader, or as a man among men, or in a leadership role among men. And I attribute it to the lack of things like the rites of passage, having elders in your life, having been given a role of honor or a mission for your people, and also having a strong bond with the masculine father or father figure. And so
it's not even just leadership, but just being men among men, like
yes,
to own a place or a seat at the table.
Yeah, many men today don't feel worthy of that, and I think it's a very unnatural symptom. It's a very unnatural phenomenon for boys and men who grow up in a culture of rich masculine tradition. This is not an issue. Their belonging is guaranteed. They go through their rite of passage. They're now a man honored and respected by their people. You know, their place around the fire, their seat at the table is solid. They have that deep belonging, and that's not an issue. So another reason to take on becoming an elder, we'll have to add this to whatever our segment was we did with talking about why to take this on. This is another reason to embark on this great epic journey of becoming an elder for your people. So yesterday, Hans,
it's almost like a rite of passage. Just taking that responsibility, picking up that load is your self-chosen rite of passage into manhood.
Yeah, there are several epic challenges a man could choose to take on. That'd be a great topic for another episode. Like, because a rite of passage implies some very difficult feat. It implies pain. It implies the unknown. Let's do that in a future episode. But today we're in our series of about 12 ways you can become an elder, and all 12 of them are valuable and important. Yesterday we talked about becoming an ancestor worth coming from, that as a way to become an elder. Today we're going to talk about honoring thy elders, and your ancestors is included in that, as a way to take your place as a man, as a way to become an elder. So Hans, one of the ways that we can do this, to honor our elders. First, let me say something about why this is powerful. When we have a tradition, and for many of us, we've lost this in the modern world. When we have a tradition of honoring our elders, it feels beautiful. It feels natural to then step into this role of an elder, because you're honored by your people. You're honored among your people.
And you will be honored. Yeah.
If there's this culture among your people of honoring their elders, then it feels great to take on this responsibility of becoming an elder. But if our people have lost this tradition of honoring elders, then it's like, why? Why do I want to take on this added responsibility?
Well, you don't even see the option. You know, it's in honoring and seeing that lineage, seeing that structure, seeing that tradition, that you see that possibility, you know, of becoming someone who will be honored, you know, and it's, if that's not there, you don't know what it is, you don't know what you're missing, it's not even an option.
Yeah, in fact, many men today they're choosing to stay at home, play video games, not move out, get their own place, not take on something great in life, not get married, not have a family. You know, so far both of us have chosen that so far.
Video games?
No marriage.
I haven't played video games.
You know, and you don't need your own children to become an elder, to take on this responsibility. And I would say largely this is because not only are we no longer honoring our elders, Hans, we're shaming men. You know, we're actually, like, several months ago, I saw some comedian, last night I saw some comedian talking about this, how all of a sudden John Wayne was trending. He died years ago, but
Bill Burr.
It was, Bill Burr had something about that, where about 6 months ago there was this outrage about John Wayne and
what he said in Playboy in 1970 something.
1971. Yeah, 50 years ago. And there's this moral outrage. So we're going back and we're cutting off the heads of all these great men who've gone before, using our standards and morality of the modern day. And so yeah, not only are we not honoring our ancestors, we're humiliating and trashing our elders and our ancestors. So no wonder young men don't want to step up and be heroes, step up and become great men, step up and take on added responsibility. So how can we reverse this trend, Hans? How can we reclaim the honor for our elders? That's what we're talking about today.
Right. As a way of being an elder.
As a way of restoring elderhood and yes, and feeling called to do it yourself.
Yes.
One thing is simply tell their stories. Tell the stories of your elders and your ancestors. That alone is honoring. Telling their stories implies that they are worth telling a story about. You know, there's something great about them and their story. Now, of course, you could tell stories that humiliate them. So I guess that, it is also it is also worth telling stories that honor them. But I would say that even telling their stories in general honors them. When telling their stories, there's a way of telling stories that can evoke the feeling of honor and a reverence for who they were, and this is a great skill to have as well. But to put it very simply,
what a great man, you add. What a great man. In that sense, you tell the story.
Yes. My uncle, what a great man. Tell a story, and then finish with what a great man, and then just tell any story that you want in between. That could pretty much work. That could pretty much work. But the more that you speak to what they faced and what they likely felt, what their experience likely was in the facing whatever challenges they were going through, and what they stood for, who they were standing for, what values they were standing for, the more you can speak to those, the more your story will evoke the spirit of honor.
Yes.
This goes to the honor work, which I have trainings and work in, and which Hans also works with. And we're not talking about that today, but Hans, another thing is just speaking their names.
Yes.
When I'm wanting to presence honor inside of a group, and we're honoring our fathers, or we're honoring anyone.
We're setting a context of honor.
We're setting a context of honor. I ask them for the name of the person that they're honoring. Because someone might say my father, but then when they say David, you know, it becomes more real. Or when they're honoring their son, you know, and they say his name, it becomes more real. So,
or even to present yourself, you know, when I do live events also, I present myself as Hans, son of, you know, Jacques Cyril Comyn is my father, and Lucrece Maria Hutri, she's my mom. And just to speak that, you know, is a way of safeguarding that lineage.
Yeah, to speak your name as in terms of that relation, who you come from. Hans from clan of the Comayns.
Clan Comyn.
Yes. You know, with the Black Lives Matter movement last year, and the different black people getting killed in America by the cops, one of the things that they go around chanting in the protests is, you know, say their name, say their name, say their name, and then they'll say the name of the person that they're talking about who has died. You know, speaking someone's name is a way of remembering them, bringing them back, and honoring them. I made a few bullets before this episode today, and another one is ask their names. So you're with someone who's lost, maybe someone's lost their father, they've lost their grandfather, and you're sitting with them. This is another great time to honor ancestors, is to sit and listen to the stories of the elder who was lost, the elder that passed away. It can be very uncomfortable to sit with someone in their grief, you know, about an elder they've lost. And it can be a bit confusing. Well, what should I do? You know, should I say sorry? This is uncomfortable. How do you be with someone in their grief? One thing that I like to do to presence honor, you know, to add honor to the grief, which is just a beautiful, it's a beautiful component to add to the grieving, the remembering, is ask, what was his name? You know, what was his full name? You know, what was his name? And they say his name, you know, and it becomes more real, like in a beautiful way. And it's a very beautiful thing. It's a very honoring thing to, and I'll ask them to tell me a story.
Yeah.
You know, who was he?
Even, yes, and when I see the ask to hear their stories, even the person, like when I'm with my father now, one of the greatest ways I discovered to honor him is to ask him to tell stories from the past, and they may include me or not, you know. And I just ask, you know, tell a story about, you know, how it was this, and it's such a great way for us to connect, for him to feel honored, you know. He just tells stories about, you know, how annoying of a kid I was, or, you know, how great I did it, and him telling that story is a way of me honoring him.
Yes.
It's a great way to connect.
Yeah, and it reconnects that bond.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I recently been putting together a book for my father, who's in his last years. And the way we're doing it is I'm getting together with my brothers and sisters, and we're sitting down and we're telling stories about my father and what we remember. We're recording those, transcribing those, and putting them into a book. But it's actually going to be a book of stories. So this is another way, right? Tell the stories, write down the stories, so they can be remembered by your children, nephews, grandchildren. We have a book of Hunsaker stories. Hunsaker's my original last name before I changed it. Yeah, we have many stories of our ancestors going back.
Isn't that the ultimate dishonoring?
It is changing your name. Yeah, it is something I could do to honor my elders and ancestors, would be to change my name back. I've thought about it. I'm still not down with it yet, but I've thought about it.
Become a Hans
but I do.
Seeker again.
but I do speak it, you know. I do speak their name. I do speak where I come from. I do, you know. I don't. There was a time when I likely didn't. I was moving away from that.
Honor them publicly.
Yes. Ask stories. Yes, ask about their stories. Honor them publicly. Okay, so when you have a chance to stand up and honor an elder, this is a great action to restore the lineage of honor.
Yes.
So I have a story about this, Hans.
Okay, me too. I just had a great example. You go first. No, very short. Okay, not just honor him like publicly in the funeral, but you could do that constantly. Like when I introduce people and to each other, and one, for example, is a man in my community, in my tribe, one of my allies. As a way of introducing him to the other, I say who he is for me. This is who he is for me, who I am for him. You know, and I explain that I honor them. And it's a way, I introduced him by honoring them. Not just like what he does, but I introduce him by honoring him. And yeah, that's the same thing as, you know, it's like a public honoring. It's a very powerful way for everyone, you know. You can feel the sacredness, the importance of that, and yeah.
Yeah, well, that's something a little bit different. I think that's another bullet point I think we can add here is to, you know, when introducing one of your elders, right? You can set a context of honor instead of just saying this is my uncle or my father or whoever. You could introduce them in a way that speaks, you know, of that sacred relationship, you know. This is my uncle, Steve. He's the man who took me in when I ran away from home, you know, at 17. And they were my surrogate parents for my senior year of high school. You know, I have an Uncle Steve like that. That's a very beautiful way to introduce him. You know, he put up with me. He, you know, speaks to what he faced, what he stood for, rather than just saying, hey, this is my Uncle Steve. Yes. And this stuff goes into what you could say is an uncomfortable zone, because you might feel something in all of these bullet points that we're suggesting. There's feeling here.
Yes. And
it's the feeling that we are restoring. It's the feeling of honor, and it is an emotion, and all emotions are uncomfortable because they move you. They move you.
They affect you.
And honor is the feeling that can restore the bonds in families, the bonds between son and father, and honor is the feeling, Hans, that has you feel rightful to take the place at the table with the other men. Honor is the feeling that has you have that confidence to sit as a leader among men.
Yes, it's the feeling that says everything is right.
Yes, yes. So you want to. So this is all these bullet points we're listing here. You want to feel that rightful place among men. Do this work of honoring thy elders and thy ancestors. So let's come back to honor them publicly. In 2004, I believe it was, we got word that my grandfather had died. This is my mom's father. And my mom...
What was his name?
Edwin. Edwin Mark Higley. Great man. What a great man. Yes. She said, yeah, you know, let's go to his funeral. And she told us at some point, none of his children feel comfortable getting up and honoring him at the funeral. And I was like, what? Maybe because it was just, they were so emotional. And there weren't many of the cousins, the grandchildren, you know, who were going to step up and do the honoring either. And I was like, hell yeah, I'm doing that. It's you know, I think this is the thing about being an elder, Hans. It's not about do I feel comfortable or do I feel ready, you know? That's, I have a chance to honor my elder, I'm going to do it because it's the right thing to do. And there is a lot of honor in it, but you don't need to wait for the feeling of honor to do it either. You know, you do it because that's who you are. So,
Edwin,
yes. Yeah, so I got up in front of it was inside of a Mormon chapel in Utah, and it was very full. And you know, I wrote this whole thing out to speak of my grandfather. And you know, I told it. There are many funny stories with my grandfather as well. And I told these, and I had the whole, you know, I had the whole room laughing, you know. And honoring, it just go back to telling the stories. It doesn't always need to be an honor story.
Yes.
To be the act of honoring them, because they all know this man. They can all relate. Yeah, that's Edwin. You know, that's Brother Higley. That's how he is. You know. And many of them had never heard those stories before. They got to know him a little bit more by seeing who he was for me, how he was my grandfather. So I told them those stories, and he really did play an epic role in my life in ushering me to manhood.
He's the one who taught you things just by having you do them?
Yeah, he would just present me with a challenge and then let me have at it. You know, at 14, I'd never driven a car before, and he rode shotgun as I drove his car down the highway. He stopped one day when he saw some these prairie dogs that poked their head up out of the hole. He grabbed his .22 rifle. He's like, "Let's see what you got, boy. See if you can hit some of them prairie dogs." You know, I had many stories like that, but he knew his grandson, me, was a city slicker back from the East Coast, and I wasn't going to get that training in being a man back on the East Coast, so he took it on. That was his role. All right, moving on to the next point here. Give them special treatment. Give your elders special treatment. So, I remember,
wherever we go, we have a hotel, and there are 2 rooms. Michael, being the older also, maybe the elder, he gets to choose first.
Yeah, Hans does a great job of that in honoring his elders. He gives up the front seat in the car and gives up the nicer room. It's a beautiful gesture, and it's uncommon, you know, among men. And you know, if I go back home to visit my brothers, you know, I went back home to, you know, John, Dave, and I got together about a month or 2 ago, and we go to get in the truck, and Dave is like, "Shotgun," you know, fighting for the front seat, you know, rather than give it up to his elder brother. And yeah, it's a simple thing. But if we want to restore this amongst our people, then we start by being the example. Give up the seat for your older brother. Give it up for your father. You know, go out of your way for your grandfather. When my parents were going through a divorce, my grandfather, who I was talking about, Edwin, he came to visit with his wife, Afton. And my mom had made a place for them down in our basement in the rec room. I think it was on mattresses on a floor. And years later, he was still upset about that. Years later. I don't want to throw my mom under the bus here. I don't remember the circumstances of that. I just remember how he felt dishonored. And yeah, so it's a gift. It's a gift you can give. And you'll likely be honored in the same way if that's how you live your life. You know, the people who are around you seeing you give up the front seats for a man who's even, you know, many other cultures have this.
Yeah.
You're one day older, you are treated as an elder. In many places in Africa, in the Middle East, and other places, it's a beautiful tradition. So,
just recapping, these are always to honor thy ancestors, and to honor thy ancestors is a way
and thy elders.
Thy elders is a way to feel honor, and to, if the original challenge was one in which men don't feel they have authority, that they have a place at the table. Yes. This is all ways that you could earn for yourself.
Yes.
The knowledge, the knowing that you.
Yes. Yeah. Imagine you sat with your elders for years, you know, and then as you start getting older, and there's younger ones coming, for you to take that place of an older person in a room with your younger cousins and sons and so on, it feels natural. That's what you do, you know. So if you've restored this tradition of honoring elders amongst your people, then you taking that spot at the table, it feels natural. You're not making anything up. You're not faking it till you make it.
You've been living it.
It just feels natural to take your seat at the table. Well, Hans, going along with giving them special treatment, an aspect of that is deferring to them, asking for their counsel. You know,
what would you do?
This is, by the way, this is a great way to restore honor. You know, if you've had a major conflict with your father, with your grandfather, with anyone in your life, true. Actually, you want to restore an honoring bond, go and ask them for their counsel.
Yes. Yeah, when my ex-business partner, Zan, we broke up, and then after a couple of years, I honored him, and we had a new lease on our relationship. What I do since then is, whenever I have mainly girlfriend problems, I ask him, you know, what would you do? You know? And I can see in that moment there's a great, a way for him to feel honored and for us to be connected. So I ask his advice and listen and learn. I didn't know the term, actually, defer to them, but I think it's a great way of honoring them.
Yes, yes, and it's not even about taking their counsel necessarily. Just to ask their counsel is a great way of honoring thy elders. Another one is it's honoring, but it's more about respect. It's not letting others disrespect them, especially the younger children in the family. Hey, that's your uncle. Respect him, you know. Hey, that's your grandfather. Don't speak that way.
Yes.
Again, holding the role of elder as sacred. Another way, Hans, we talked about if you have judgment against a father or anyone, and you want to restore honor, this is a very challenging undertaking. This is a very challenging undertaking. Like you with Zan, for example. And this is where the honor work comes in. It's work that I and people who've done my work with me over the many years have developed for bringing down the walls of judgment and restoring honor. And yeah, it's imagine you have the capacity to bring down the walls of judgment you may have with your father.
Yes, that's the biggest one. I mean, from experience, you know, it's just, I could almost say I always had a good relationship with my father, but then also over the years it's very much steeped in judgment, you know. He's judging people on TV, and I'm judging him for judging people on TV, you know. and it becomes thicker and thicker, those walls, you know, until the day that, you know, you realize if you're suffering from that, or something greater is possible, that find a way to honor him. And what I did for his 70th birthday was write him a little booklet of who he is for me, you know, and who I am for him. And I was just looking at what he's facing, what he's standing for. I was also telling him that, his education of me was good. He did enough, you know, which is really what, I don't know if you said that, but it's really what a parent wants to hear. Did I do enough? Did I do it right?
Yeah.
And I spoke in how my work right now really is a continuation of the dragons that he fought, you know? Like my work is continuing what you were doing. And I could just see how there's a before that time and there's an after. You know, the relationship is completely different.
Yes.
The relationship with him is different, but the relationship with me and my sisters is different, because I did this publicly. And the relationship between my sisters and my father is different. And I noticed that. The whole family changed because of it.
Yes.
Or upgraded.
Yes.
And
it's a role of leadership. It's a path of leadership to honor your father, your elders amongst your people. What happens in a lot of families, groups, and communities is everyone kind of becomes in agreement about how dad fucked up.
Yes.
You know, or about how this person is not worthy of our ultimate respect and honor.
And you could tell that story of how he fucked up things, or you could tell the story of what a great man it is.
Yes.
You know? I could tell a story of how fucked up it is, you know,
yes.
in the ways it wasn't enough.
Yeah.
But, and, you know, it's not changing. My father is still judging people on TV, you know. But I could tell the story of how great he is, you know. It doesn't mean I spend all my time with him, but it does mean that whenever I speak about my father, Jacques Cyril Comyn, you know, that I choose to tell a story of his greatness. And that's the difference.
And if you do tell the story of something that you don't like or something that he fucked up, you can preface it by, he's a great man. You can honor him first and then tell the fucked up story, you know, and he's still a great man.
Yes.
And you can even tell the fucked up story in honor terms. You can get present to what you realize, you know, I've been judging my dad for this. He's a fuck up because of this. What I didn't realize is what he was facing at the time that I was not present to at all. And what he was standing for, who he was standing for in the face of all of that. Could he have done it better? Yeah. But you can even honor him in telling the fucked up story.
But my father, I'm the firstborn. Just to show how much he was facing. After I was born, my father said, I don't want any more children. You know, because he was like, if it's like this, I don't want any more children. And my mom said to him, how could it possibly be as bad as this one? And he goes, oh, that's right. And they had some more children. Anyway, what a great man.
Yes. Yeah. So, you know, creating that context of honor in the family for this elder, father, whoever, is a way of remembering them, bringing them back into our hearts, back into the fold. And
wow, I just see how not only we're not putting those elders on say a pedestal or giving them a privileged place, we're forgetting them. Like they're not even amongst us.
Yes.
They're cast away.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
So it's not only remembering them, but really like putting them up.
Yeah, and in America where I come from, you know, mostly the younger people want to exclude the older people, even in the family. But if I go to some place like South America, everyone's at the party. Everybody. The grandmother, the great-grandmother, the weird uncle, the...
How often do you see here young girls, young boys walk with their grandfather or grandmother, you know?
Yeah, all the time.
And you go to a restaurant and the grandparents are sitting with the grandchildren. you know. And they have. I was sitting in yesterday,
and even a daughter with a mother, I don't see that back in America hardly at all.
Yeah, and I
like,
see.
I'm talking about like an adult daughter with an adult mother.
What I saw yesterday, this older man, I'm assuming the grandfather, and 3 granddaughters, girls, young girls, let's say 18, 20, you know. And if that would be in the West and this happened, it would be awkward or strange, or like they don't know how to talk, or they would be overbearing, you know. And that conversation was just complete, like eye to eye, you know. And I thought, wow, you know, it's family, you know. It's family, and not only just family. You could see that they were treating him with, like, he's the guy.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's complicated and challenging. We put my dad in a rest home, retirement home, with his wife last year. They really went downhill with Parkinson's, and yeah, it's, you know, we no longer have this culture of you take your elders into your home, you take your parents and grandparents into your home, and that, you know, many cultures still have that tradition. They wouldn't even think of farming it out to some strangers, you know. So,
yes,
yeah, all these sacred relations have been monetized in a way, you know.
But how tragic as that is, you know, what this list shows is just so many ways, so many opportunities you have to just create it, to just start it, to start your own tradition, you know. That liberty you do have, you know. You can ask for their stories, you can speak their name, you can defer to them, you can ask their counsel. And as you do that, you instantly are honoring, or you're telling the stories of your ancestors, and instantly there's honor, and instantly you're cultivating elderhood. You know? So that's the opportunity we do have to change that around, one story at a time.
Yeah. So invite them to the party, you know. Invite that old, estranged uncle, grandfather. Invite him. Welcome him in.
This is a long-winded attempt of us to be invited to parties. All right. So, this is the second way that you can be and become an elder.
Do the work of honoring thy elders and ancestors.
Tomorrow, we'll
be
talk
back
about
tomorrow.
The third one. Well,
we'll decide what that is.
We'll keep it a secret till then.
Yes.
See you tomorrow.